Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be doing some more tactics problems on Chessidy. So warm up that tactical eye of yours and come and join me. Hey guys, Brian Castro from Better Chess Training, and we're going to do another tactics session on Chessidy.com. What I'm going to be trying to do here that I didn't mention last time, but what I did was really focusing on a couple aspects of my thought process and my calculations, and mainly that's trying to observe um, the whole variation through to the end where we can make a conclusion. So really, it's no guessing. I'm not going to make any guessing moves, which is what I did last time, but I'm making it more explicit today. Okay, let's take a look at our first problem here, and kind of glancing at it already. We see here we have this battery lining up here against this bishop. We also have this battery coming down here. So when you're looking at tactical problems, you want to look at the forcing moves first, but also identifying any motifs you see. So actually, the thing I see here is something like bishop takes c5, and then if queen takes c5, I can play queen takes d3, and then if the pawn takes, then rook takes c5. So that actually would win a rook. And so all I have to do here is see if there's anything better. We can see here the rook's blocking here. There's no real way to checkmate the black king. And then also we want to check. So I don't think I really have anything better. Winning a rook's pretty substantial. After I take this bishop, if um, black were to move the queen elsewhere, then I could just retreat the bishop. So basically I'm winning at least a piece there because of this pin. So let's go ahead and play that. One thing I want to check, just make sure there's no checks that he can do. And really there isn't any. There's no counterattacks against my queen or anything like that. So bishop takes c5. Okay, queen takes c5, and then queen takes d3. Okay, and so far so good. I noticed last time we did this that I took a long time on the first couple moves, so I don't want to move carelessly, but I do want to be a little, maybe a little quicker with some of my calculations here. Okay, let's take a look at this position, and I always look at the kings first. We can see my king is fairly safe. There's nothing really attacking it. Um, his king is fairly safe, and looking at the relationship here, we've got this pawn attacking this knight, and so we want to take a look at that. We've also got this knight attacking this pawn, but it's fairly well defended. So let's take a look here. Well, we need to deal with this knight being attacked. So I guess the first thing we want to look at is see what we could do about that. Of course, we could just take this pawn. Okay, so that's one option, or we can move the knight. If we take the pawn, there's a couple choices. We can take with either the queen or with the pawn. So we'll examine that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else here. Um, One thought I just had was this knight looking here, see if there's any forking ideas. So my idea here is that now that I've seen this threat, I just want to see if there's anything better, because otherwise I'll resort back to just taking a pawn there. The one thing I'm seeing here is maybe something with bishop to h6 attacking this queen here. Not sure if there's anything to do with that at the moment, um, but that's another future thing. And also see if there's any shenanigans here with advancing this pawn and opening up this bishop. Um, and there I don't really see anything either. So if I were to take this pawn, is there anything that white can do? And I really don't see anything. He doesn't really have any attack on my king. This file, the key squares to try to check my king are covered by the pawns. Um, and I guess the only thing I would have to be careful of is if I were to take here with the queen, there would be a discovery, perhaps, or some type. There could be some type of discovery, but I think taking with the pawn. Well, the one thing taking with the queen would be that it also protects this pawn here. So then I just have to see if there's any discovered attack. So queen takes d5, for example, and are there any effective discoveries? And I don't really see any because if he moves this knight to anywhere other than say h4, then I could take here. And then if he moves, um, if he does move the knight here to h4, then I could just move the queen out of the way. Um, or even something like queen to h4 here. So essentially, I think I'm just winning this pawn here. So let's see here. If I do take with the pawn, then he's got some threats here in terms of taking this pawn. Oh no, he doesn't because his bishop's covering. Okay, so never mind. So maybe just taking with the pawn is good. I have a feeling though there's something I'm missing or something that could be better. So I just want to take a quick look. Um, does he have any hanging pieces? He just has this, but I can't really attack it at all. I think I just have to take back, but what is the advantage? I'm just trying to see if there's any particular advantage of taking with the queen versus the pawn. One of the things that I talk about in one of my other videos is that you really, when there's a choice between two things, the queen taking and the pawn taking. Actually, you know what? I know what the answer is because the queen's actually being attacked too. Totally missed that, but I'm glad I saw it. So I think it is queen takes here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And that was it. So that was a simple problem, but if I would have noticed that relationship earlier, I would have been able to make that decision faster. By the way, I did make the pieces, I can customize, on Chessity you can customize the board size and the piece size. So I made the pieces a little bigger. One of my viewers mentioned that the pieces were kind of small to him. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you find that helpful. Okay, here we've got some interesting things going on here. We've got some type of attack on the king, but is there anything doing about that? We've got, let's see here, got this knight hanging, got this bishop, it's not hanging, but um, so we've got that too. So actually, there's two, this could be something where they're trying to distract us from the real thing here. Material is about even. I think white actually has an extra pawn, and this pawn is hanging. But what if we were to attack this, like queen to d2? And we're attacking this knight, and we're attacking this bishop. And if the knight were to move, then then maybe we have something there. Now, one thing to note too is that um, black or white cannot play rook to a3 to protect because of queen to c1 check would fork the king and the rook. So that's one idea, actually winning some material. So let's just see if we have some type of checkmate. And I see here knight to c4, but then bishop to c1 just protects the, um, I'm sorry, bishop to f1. So this is a knight to f5, got the board flipped over. Bishop to c1 protects the pawn, and even if knight to h3 check, he just goes king to h1. There is just no way to break through here because this queen is covering this diagonal as well. So I think queen to d2 is the answer, and he's going to lose some material because he can't bring his queen back to protect these pieces, or at least this knight, and this rook cannot protect this knight. And if the knight moves, I will just take the bishop. And the only thing I want to check again if there's any immediate threats on myself. He could take this pawn right here, but with my bishop protected and my king has some safety and my knight can come back to defend, there doesn't seem to be any threats. So queen to d2 looks like the solution. Okay, got it. Next up here. Oh, by the way, and not just so you could kind of keep track here, my tactics rating on Chessity, I've been playing a little bit, is up to 20 98, so 2098. So I'm pretty pleased about that. I think that might be the highest it's been. So let's take a look at this problem. And here we have a situation where we have two pieces that are attacked. That's the immediate thing that I notice. So if we look at material, I'm actually up a piece. Let's see, just counting the pawns here. I'm up a piece, so I want to preserve that piece. I don't want to lose it back. And so the immediate thing I see here is counterattacking. If I were to take, I can do one of two things. I can take um, this pawn here, and then if he takes my bishop, I could take um, this guy here, this knight, with check, which would be fairly good. The other idea I had was bishop to e4, attacking this rook, which gets my bishop out of the way. The only problem I see with that is that this, I want to click that, this bishop no longer has a spot to go, and so I'm going to end up losing this bishop. Or am I? If I move my bishop here, and he moves his rook over here, then yeah, the problem is I have to back up my bishop. My bishop gets into a little bit of trouble here, it seems. Um, but I'm not sure if that's the case. So I'm between two moves, guys. I'm between bishop takes c4 and bishop takes, I'm sorry, bishop to e4. Now, the other consideration here is that this pawn is hanging. So we might want to keep the bishop or the rook on the a file. So I guess I'm still at a quandary here what to do. The other thing is if you know what? Yeah, I think so. Bishop takes c4. If he just plays king to c6, now this knight is protected, and this bishop doesn't have an escape because the rook is covering these two squares, and this pawn is being protected. So I actually think the answer here is to play bishop to e4, because now I'm attacking the rook, which he has to move, and that'll give me time to get my bishop out. So that's my thought there. Um, just trying to make sure he doesn't have any promotion threats here. Um, all right, let's go ahead and, well, let's see. Let's make sure there's nothing else. Um, yeah, I think this is definitely not bishop takes e3. So bishop takes e4, and he can move his rook. I'm thinking he would probably move it um, to someplace like c8 or say c6, and then um, if he moves it on the a file, I'll just take this pawn, and he moves it over to the c file, then I can escape this way, and then I can think about taking this pawn. Okay, so bishop to e4, I believe, is the answer. Okay, I got it wrong, so we're going to take a look at that afterwards and see where I went wrong with that, okay? Okay, next problem. Um, okay, so here we got some back rank issues. We've got some light square issues. No attack on my king. So I think I see already what the answer is. I think it's rook to e8 check, and then if the he's forced to take it, and then I go queen takes e8 check, and then the king moves up here to b7, and then I take this rook here. And there's no threats on my king and no counter attacks here. So one more time, rook to e8 check, and rook takes e8 is force, queen to e8 check, and again king to b7 is force, and then I just win this rook, and then I'm up a piece. Okay, I believe that's a solution, but let's go and let's make sure that there are no checkmates or anything like that that I might be missing. I'm not going to deliberate too much because I really think that's a very clear answer But I don't see any other ways, and he doesn't, because all these moves are forced. There's not much he can do. Okay, okay. Queen takes e8. Now queen takes a4. And we got it. Okay, so we got one strike against us, but that's okay. We're going to learn from our mistakes. And here, little tricky here. It's white to play. And at first thought, this is kind of one of those traps. Tempted, you might be tempted to play knight takes g5 at the idea that it opens up this diagonal for this bishop, but we have this discovered check here. So how are we going to reconcile that is the question. And we've got some more trouble. He's got this pawn here too. So I think I have the solution. He's about to promote here, but you notice that his king is stalemated. He can't go anywhere. So all I need to do is deliver a legal check. So I think knight to d6 is the answer. He might promote. There's no way he can protect f7, and then f7 is mate. Okay? I think that's pretty forced. There are no checks that he can deliver. He promotes, it's not going to deliver check. There are no captures he can make. So I think that's just the solution. Yep, he's going to promote and checkmate. Okay? So far, so good. Let's keep moving. Now, white to play. And we've got 5 pawns. We're up in exchange for a pawn, basically. And so the idea here, we need to stop him, obviously. He's got a lot of momentum going here, trying to promote. So we want to try to stop that. And I think I see the solution here. I think it's a simple, well, let me look here. I don't think I'm going to be able to protect this pawn. The idea is to be able to stop these pawns. So rook takes e4 is the first idea, and then if the point being that if d2 king to e2 stops that, and now I'm threatening here as well. Looks okay. And then if you were to play king to d6, I'm just wondering if there's a follow-up here. I could just move over to the A file, start pushing my pawns perhaps. The idea being that he cannot force me with my king on e2 and with the dark square bishop, he's not going to be able to force me, force this pawn in, even with the support of this pawn. And I might be able to win his bishop because he's gonna have to stop this pawn, and the king won't be fast enough to get back, I think, because it's going to be on d6. Let's see. Let's just look at this. Rook takes e4. d2, king to e2 stops that. Then he plays king to d3 or king to d6. Then I can play I can actually play something like rook to. This is interesting. Rook to b4, and then if he takes it, oh no, yeah, he can still stop me. So um, this is interesting. I'm just trying to find a follow up because I think rook takes e4 is a sensible move. So the question is, maybe I need to go ahead and push ahead with my pawn first. But you know what? I can't allow him to play e3. So I think rook takes e4 first. And then even if he doesn't push this right away and he plays king to d6, then I can play rook. I just play rook to a4, and then if king takes d5, just start pushing this pawn. If he blockades it, I just bring my king around here. So this is where it gets a little. Now I'm not sure. This is gonna be one of those problems where rook takes e4 is the only move that's encountered. Um, I think that is the first move in the sequence. I'm just trying to see if a6. The idea here I have is that when you have these two pawns that are two files apart, it's very difficult for the king alone. So one idea would be to try to exchange this, but I don't see a way that I can force that necessarily. Um, hmm. Rook takes e4, king to d6. There's no way I can protect this pawn, so I can go rook to a4, king takes d5, a6. Then he needs to blockade maybe. Um, and then I can play rook. Well, I can play rook to b4. Then if he tries to bring his king back over, then I can play rook to h7, and I'm sorry, rook to b7, and then attack this pawn. It's kind of tricky. I think it's winning. I don't think he can force these two pawns down because my rook will be able to restrict his king. So I'm just gonna, well, I just said at the beginning of the video, no guessing. So rook takes e4. I'm just saying, is there anything to attacking this bishop? I think he just backs the bishop up. And the problem here is that this threat of e3 is the primary one. So I think that's what I have to stop. I'm going to play rook to e4, and I think at the very least I have an even game. And maybe the problem is not to try to win this one outright. Okay, and then king to e2, as we said, is the answer. Okay, so that was the issue. I think it was identifying e3, the e3 advance as the threat. Okay, let's keep going. Got three more to go if we can win it that way. So here, white is threatening checkmate here with king. I'm sorry, rook takes h6. I know checkmate would be inevitable after that. Um, so is there a way to stop that or to otherwise allow us to be victorious? So let's see here. Looking for different ways to check the king. If I take this, rook takes e2, queen takes e2. Um, this looks about even. I don't can't imagine how. Well, let's see, can we do something here with checking the king and getting him to go this way? Problem is none of that's forced. I don't think there's any way to force him. I mean, that way. Maybe a check first. Um, I have to do something because actually the checkmate threat is rook takes e1 check. It's actually mate in one. So the question is what to do there. Um, and if I play, I have to deal with this. If I just take it, that eliminates the mating threat. But is there a way to win this position? The ideal follow up would be to find something where I can trade off the queens with this outside passed pawn. So that's another idea. But again, some of these problems I've been noticing have been sort of just don't make the bad move, I guess. You know, maybe there is no other move other than taking this rook, but I don't want to guess. And in our games, we should try to find the truth behind the position. So, um, so I'm just exploring the checks here. Queen to c7 check. I mean, he just has to move here. There's no fork that I can see where I can get in here. Can I counterattack? Oh, okay, I see it. Oh, look at that. So looking at checks over here, this is why you want to look at the forcing moves. Queen to h5 check, and then I fork the rook and the king. So that's the solution right there. Actually, let's double check. Um, yeah, it's forced. You can block, and then I'm just winning that rook. So let's go ahead and do that. And does it matter if I take with the queen or the rook? I don't think it does. I'm just going to, well, I think taking with the queen is better because there's no follow-up checks that I can't block. Oh, and actually also it protects this pawn here. So queen is the better recapture. Okay, good. So 7 right, 1 wrong. We're doing okay so far. Um, Looking at this next problem here, we see this knight pressure here. And already what I'm looking at here is knight takes f7 with bishop to e6, um, which would pin this and then win the exchange. So that's the immediate thing. Um, I think I have to take with the knight as opposed to the rook because otherwise this knight will be lost. It's pretty straightforward. Is there anything better? There's not enough firepower, I think, to checkmate the king at the moment. Just looking at move order type things. Is there any way to win, say, this queen? I don't think so. Um, and the only other thing I'm looking at here is there any, like, if we could draw the king out, are there any tactics to win that? And I don't see that as well. So I think it's just knight takes f7, rook takes f7, bishop to e6. Kind of intuition on that. And let's play it. Okay. Bishop to e6, pinning this, and we're going to win at least the exchange. Okay, so there is no other captures. Actually, black does not have any other captures or any forcing moves that he can do separately. Okay, so we got that. And final one, well, hopefully it's the final one here. Let's take a look here. Black to play. Material is even. And what do we have here? One thing to note is that we're in check. So sort of the insidious thing that that our that chessity does is that they'll do these little things here. If you don't notice that your king is in check and then you make an illegal move, then it's going to penalize you. But in this case too, there is a decision to be made. Should I block with the rook or block with the bishop? And the answer here is you have to block with the rook, because if you block with the bishop's now pinned, and then white has knight to f7 checkmate. So the answer is rook to g8, I believe. I have to do something about the check, and those two are the only legal moves. So there it is. Let's take a look here. Okay, let's take a quick look at that problem that I got wrong today, and I actually did some analysis, and I can see why my solution wasn't right. So if I play bishop to e4 with the assumption I made was that this rook has to move, and actually black has a great move here. C takes b4. Okay, and then if I take the rook, then b3. And the problem here is that my rook is not going to be able to stop these two pawns, especially when you include this knight coming in here on c3 perhaps. So that is why that is not correct. Now let's go and look back at the solution. The solution was that bishop takes c4. And during the video, I mentioned that king to c6 is the reason why this doesn't work. However, after some analysis, the best move here would be rook takes a2. And then after these rooks get traded off, okay, and then black takes this bishop, we take back with the b pawn. We're actually 3 pawns up, and so we should be able to win this endgame, and this is a significant advantage. So this is why this solution is better. And one more time here. Bishop takes c4, and the chessity actually gives c takes b4 as the solution. And we saw that we have bishop takes b5 check, which is obviously winning, but they did not account for that king to c6. But that is also still winning once I calculated it. So the lesson here in this particular problem was that I have to test my assumptions. My assumption was that the rook needed to move in the bishop to e4 variation, when actually it was more significant that black let that rook go and get the queenside pawns moving. So it was a good lesson for me, and I hope it was for you as well. Okay, just to sum up our training session today, we got 9 correct and 1 incorrect. This was, again, Chessidy's medium tactics exercise, and our beginning rating was 2098, and we finished up with 2089, so lost a few points. The problem with these problems, or the training exercise, since my rating is getting a little higher, is that every one I get incorrect, I lose a lot of points, and every one I get correct, I don't get very many points. But that's okay. In chess, sometimes we have to be very vigilant and be able to make the easy moves, or moves that are easy for us, as well as more difficult ones. But what I might do next time is look for do the mixed tactics, where more difficult problems will be mixed into the exercise. One of the key lessons I got today, especially from the one I got incorrect, is that we always have to test our assumptions. And as we discussed in when we reviewed that one I got incorrect, testing our calculations and making sure our assumptions are actually true. There was a theme in that also was good to remember, is that the connected passed pawns, advanced passed pawns against the rook, will often be advantageous for the passed pawns. And finally, next session, if you want to leave a message in the comments, we can look at the chess.com tactical trainer. I do those as well as Chess Tempo's the various tactical exercises on Chess Tempo. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please press the like button. And if you're new to the channel, Better Chess Training is about helping you to improve your chess, both by helping you to understand chess better, give you ideas about training and performance at the board, and also doing some training together with these new tactics videos that I've been doing the last couple weeks. So if that's something that you might find useful and enjoyable, hit that subscribe button, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a future video.